We're going to discuss this with Nazanine Moshiri in Barcelona. She's a senior analyst for climate and security in Africa with International Crisis Group. Nazanine, thanks for joining us this news hour. Just watching that report, you get the sense that really not enough is being done to avert this famine, despite the many warnings from aid groups for months now. Why is this?
Yes, I just came back from a long field trip to Somalia, and I went to the epicenter of where experts are predicting the famine will be. That's in Baidoa, where there are around 500,000 people living in the town who've been displaced. I also went to Dolo, another town which has been badly affected, with many displaced people heading there on Ethiopia's border with Somalia. And I covered the famine in Somalia in 2011. I was there when President Erdogan and his wife came to Mogadishu. There was a big push for assistance for many Somalis at that time. But unfortunately, in the past year or so, when we've been seeing this devastating drought, the worst in 40 years, the world has really been very distracted with what's been happening in Ukraine, in Afghanistan, and Somalia just hasn't garnered the same kind of attention as it did in 2011. But at the same time, when famine is looming and when famine is predicted and the United Nations and its partners don't declare famine easily, there are various factors that lead to that dire situation. But when famine is declared, unfortunately, it's already too late. And we are predicting at the moment that potentially up to 300,000 people could lose their lives, mainly women and children, and particularly children, unfortunately. And we're expecting this famine declaration in the next couple of weeks.
I have to admit, it's really difficult to look at some of the images from Somalia, especially of the children who are affected. And many of those living in the areas that you mentioned are actually controlled by Al-shabaab. We know that the US counter-terrorism laws block aid from reaching groups it designates terror organizations, Al-shabaab being one of those. How big a role does this play in hampering efforts to get aid to those who need it most?
I have to say that many aid agencies, including ones linked to the US, are looking at this situation and are prepared in a way to take a risk to try to get the aid as close as possible to those areas controlled by Al-shabaab. Because remember, although Al-shabaab does control certain key areas, including in the rural parts, there are lots of towns which are basically besieged by the group, surrounded by the group, blockaded by Al-shabaab. And aid could potentially reach those towns, or at least close to those towns. So there is talk about exceptions being made because of the seriousness of the situation. I think many aid agencies are willing to take that risk to try to help those people who are living in these hard to reach areas. But one additional problem is that there's an ongoing fighting at the moment between clan militia, which are being backed by the Somali government, and Al-shabaab. And this conflict in areas like Hiran province, in Galgaduud, and also Middle Shabelle, and even parts of Lower Shabelle, are hampering efforts too, making it more difficult to reach those people through main supply routes because of the insecurity and leading to even more displacement.
Nazanine Moshiri, excellent to get your views. Thank you so much for your time, much appreciated.